morning. Hi, gorgeous, lovey love. So I'm leaving this apartment, and before I left, I want to make something here and show you before I leave how to cook intuitively. So today we're going to be making a miniature loaf of bread. This is something that I have for an afternoon snack. It is currently the afternoon and it's so quick. I could buy bread, buy toast, but no, I'm gonna make my own, and I'm not gonna use a recipe. So this is how we're going to make bread intuitively. All right, let's start with my ingredients. Just grab some flour, okay? This is spelt. I have a few oats because I just like the texture of oats in my spelt, and plus oats have some melatonin. Oh my gosh. It sounds like the people outside are inside. I hope y'all didn't hear that. The window's open, so I need the fresh air. But oats have a teensy bit, or they have a certain amount of melatonin in them. And since I am winding down for the day, it's afternoon, late afternoon, it's a little appetizer for me. I want a little bit of melatonin to help me sleep. We got some baking powder, salt, honey, of course, and then some water over here. And we also have teff flour. I'm just using up flours that I have since I'm leaving, and we're just gonna put everything into this bowl. Now I'm gonna show you how to do this. And when you're making bread, or just cooking intuitively in general, oh snap, I don't have a spatula to mix things. I'll get that. But when you're cooking intuitively in general, you need to have a feeling of how much a cup is. Half a cup, 1 teaspoon, 1 tablespoon, half a teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon. You need to know how much this looks like, because we're not using any of that. So let me grab a spoon. Actually, I'm gonna grab a spatula and I'll be back. All right, I'm back, got my spatula. Let's get started. It is so fun cooking intuitively. And the way that I'm going to enjoy this bread, you'll see. I'm gonna slice it up, get some olive oil, put some salt, pepper, and red pepper flakes, and dip the bread in that. And I'm just gonna watch a little bit of Emily in Paris while I do that. But let's get started. I'm just gonna honestly get started. All right, so let's get some spelt flour in here. How much is left? I'm gonna use all of this. There's hardly any left, and I need to use my ingredients since I'm leaving. This is how much spelt we have. This is probably half a cup. All right, it's probably half a cup. A bit of oats. I want y'all to see inside, but that's all right. So we got a bit of oats. That's probably like maybe a tablespoon and a half. Okay. And then we've got teff flour. Teff is pretty good. Keep in mind, the recipe that I'm doing, I'm using spelt, which has some gluten, and then oats and teff flour do not have gluten. So I'm gonna have to account for that with my leavener, which I'm using baking soda. So I'm gonna use a little bit more baking soda than if I was just using spelt by itself, which has more gluten, which would rise better with the baking soda since it has that protein. All right, I believe gluten is a protein. It's like a mix of stuff. So I'm just gonna do like maybe 1/4 of a cup of teff flour in here. So you see everything in here. We have This is probably 3/4 of a cup to a cup of flour and stuff. So since it's like 3/4 of a cup to 1 cup, I'm gonna put 3/4 to 1 teaspoon. That's the ratio I'm going for when I'm making this quick bread, right? So however many cups of flour, you're gonna want to use the same amount of teaspoons of leavener. But since I'm only using a little bit of gluten, I'm actually gonna use a full teaspoon of the baking powder. Now, this is my bread, okay? And I'm not gonna be picky with the texture that it comes out to, okay? I'm going to be loving, I'm gonna enjoy it however it comes out. So I'm gonna just measure mentally a teaspoon of this. I'm gonna say that's like a teaspoon, maybe a drizzle more. Okay, since you don't have that gluten, too much of it. I am not gluten-free, but I do use gluten-free flours just because I like having a variety of different plants in my eating style. Now, this is salt. I'm just gonna put a good amount of salt. I like salt in my bread. I'll let you know how much this is. This is probably 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna do a drizzle of honey. Literally, nice drizzle there. I find that when I make these quick breads, they sweeten pretty easily. So if I put a little bit of honey, it goes a long way. I don't mind if this bread is a little bit on the sweeter side today. I'm just feeling kind of sweet. So I'm just gonna put a little bit extra. Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Okay. And I'm gonna mix this in. Sometimes, you don't need the spatula. But as far as water, so keep in mind, right, we did 3/4 to 1 cup of the flour. So I'm gonna do half of that water. So really with water, I need about 1/3 to 1/2 of a cup. That's, for me, it's a little bit harder to see the water measured out, but let's do this. We're going for 1/3 to 1/2 of a cup. I gotta just visualize that mentally. I'm gonna go for 1/3. All right. And let's give this a nice mix. Show you guys what we're working with here. Now this is just for me. I'm literally just about to eat this with my olive oil and watch Netflix. I don't know how, because I just returned my modem for the Wi-Fi, so I have to find a way. I could use my hotspot, I don't know. We'll figure that out. But this is what the dough looks like. I'm not going to bother with the kneading or anything like that. We're not doing all that. This is just a quick afternoon snack that I enjoy. I'm sure. How did all this get here? I'm sure you will too. So I'm just gonna take this like corset, I think it's pronounced corset, and some parchment paper. So I'm just going to put this in so that when I finish baking the bread, it's so easy to just take this out, slice it, and have my snack. Comes together super easily and quick. Like this prep, if I wasn't explaining, it takes me like 2 minutes. I'm just flour, salt, honey, powder, flour, salt, honey, powder. Get in my tummy, it's getting louder. Not gonna take an hour, cause it's quick bread. Using my head, intuition, anyways, let's go. And I do this pretty often, so I know how much is gonna fit into this cost set. And it's really, I does this, okay? I does this. So it's in there. This is what it looks like. Nice. So I'm gonna put this into the oven for, I don't know, it's on 375 right now. I preheated it before I started filming, and I'm just gonna pop this into the oven. I'm gonna check back in like 20 minutes. I might make myself a smoothie in the meantime because it still has to cool down, and I'm just a hungry girl today, okay? And I want a smoothie, so I'm gonna make that while this cooks and cools down. And a few other cool things that I've learned about gluten. If you're someone who likes baked goods and things like that, I learned that salt helps increase the gluten. So the salt helps it bind together. Sweeteners, sugars, it weakens the gluten, okay? Oil weakens gluten, and sugar, what else strengthens the gluten? Gluten gets strengthened with more time because it has more time to bind, and there's something else that strengthens the gluten. I wrote it down because I'm taking a little course that taught me that. But just so you know, if you add salt, you're increasing the gluten, and also if you add, you know, the more you mix, the more the gluten gets stronger and has more time to bind together and really get super strong. If you've ever seen wheat gluten, it is so thick you can hardly pull it apart. So when you get that good stretch, like think about pizza dough almost. Like with pizza dough, how it's so thin, yet when they're like mixing it, it doesn't break apart because of the gluten. The gluten, it gets stronger and it binds together with mixing, with time. And with some baked goods, you want that strength. With others, you don't want to overmix. So know your baked goods. And let's get this one into the oven. Okay, I'm back. I'm changed because I was in my outside clothes and I don't like to be on my couch in my outside clothes. I know. It is what it is. But I have a smoothie that I made here. It was a lot. So I'm just gonna take a little. I could drink this, but I'm preferring to do it like this because it's thick. So what happened in the meantime? The bread is now cooling. I'm gonna come back and show you the finale of our snack that we made today. I mentioned that I went on a little Wi-Fi search. I'm just gonna use my hotspot for right now because the plan wasn't working. I asked one of my neighbors, she's out of town, but her Wi-Fi is not one of the networks that shows up, blah blah blah. But let's talk about gluten really quickly. So I found out what I was trying to tell you about what makes gluten stronger. So gluten is stronger when you use salt, like I mentioned, but also if you use a higher protein flour, the gluten will be stronger. Another thing that makes it weaker is acidity. So acidity, sugar, and fat/oil makes gluten weaker. High protein flour and salt makes gluten stronger, as well as time and more kneading. So yeah. Hey, so since we were talking about gluten today, I do want to mention that gluten is a protein, and the only reason I would be afraid of gluten is if it is so strong that my digestive system could not break it down. The proteins that make up gluten are glutenin and gliadin. They're typically found in wheat and other grains. Now, when these proteins come into contact with water is when the gluten starts to form. Okay, so continuing to knead, I already mentioned the things that can strengthen gluten: salt, higher protein flour, time kneading, and just time sitting out. And what can weaken gluten is the oil, fats, sugar, and acid can weaken gluten. So if you have a gluten allergy, perhaps consider other things in your eating style that may be contributing to making this an allergy, because scientifically, some scientists say that celiac disease isn't really real, and I'm not negating your pain, boo, but I will say that gluten is essential in certain baked goods. The formation of these different threads and folds and layers in baked goods that we have come to love. There are definitely ways around this, which is why we have so many gluten-free options today, but gluten isn't bad, so don't be afraid of gluten. A lot of people are gluten-free now. I think it's because of celiac disease. I was talking to someone who has a stand at a farmer's market, and she mentioned to me that something about science and how gluten allergies might not even be real. It might be something else that someone has in their eating style that could be interacting with the gluten and therefore making them have a bad reaction. I don't know. All I know is that gluten-free baking is really cool because you have to use different things to bind like the gluten does, like chia seeds, flax seeds, things like that. But also I know that gluten is really cool because of all the different types and textures of breads and baked goods that you can get from it. By the way, the smoothie is delicious. It is made with wild blueberries, inspired by a blueberry pie smoothie that I have created. If you want to get the recipe, you can go to thelifeofhoney.com and get the smoothie ebook called Sui Generous Smoothies, also in the link in the description. So good. But gluten is cool. I've noticed that when I educate myself more about the things that I eat, I feel a little bit safer eating them. Stepping into the vegan world, the plant-based world, I saw that many things were gluten-free. And so I honestly had no idea what gluten was, none, until I took the time to actually research it for myself to see what it was. And not knowing what it was, when I saw gluten-free, I thought automatically that it would be better or healthier for me because I didn't know what gluten was. I'm like, gluten-free, if it's free from gluten, perhaps gluten is not something that I should be eating or bad, but gluten doesn't really have a negative effect on me. And I found out that it has a negative effect on other people, why that may be, what gluten actually is, what it does. And now I am happy knowing more about gluten because it's an important part of cooking and baking. So shout out to gluten. And yeah, things get less scary the more you research it. Okay. I'm gonna finish this and come back with my bread. Okay. Here is still hot, still a bit hot. It rose just a bit. You can see, let's pull it right up. Get you closer. Okay. So, I'm gonna move that. Just back up. So you can see everything that I'm doing. So we got our little piece of bread here, right? It's like a little miniature loaf. So fold this, and I'm just gonna slice it like, excuse me, just being real here. All right, so I'm going to just slice this. I'm gonna do it like that way. It's a bit crumbly. Oops. That's all right. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for a snack. It's just quick, easy bread, and it's gonna be so good. Trust. I would even eat this with pasta for dinner if I was having or making some pasta. Also, I didn't mention this, but I hit my head while I was getting my herbs for my smoothie. I had to get a ladder to go up in the cabinet. And like when I opened the cabinet, it hit my head and now it hurts. But anyways, show you the texture of this. Can y'all see that steam? Okay. So now let's plate this baby up. Got our little plate here. And all I'm gonna do, quick transfer. Excel. I'm gonna lay it down. Like that. You know, some light, some simple. And this is some really, really good olive oil. Okay. If you want to do something subtle to enhance your meals, enhance your life, get good quality olive oil, good quality oils generally. And this is gonna be extra good for me because it's not being cooked. So I'm having raw olive oil, and it's just, raw olive oil is really good for you. Okay, so I do a drizzle like that, just like that. And then I'm gonna do some salt. I'm not afraid of salt. I'm not afraid of salt. And some black pepper. Ooh, I could smell it. Am I gonna sneeze? No. So, last but not least, red pepper flakes. Get a good amount. And any crumbs, I'm just gonna toss. This is what we are working with as our snack. How lovely of a snack is this while the sun is still out? It's just great. Okay, and let's take our first bite together. So usually I take 15 deep breaths before I eat a meal. Now, this doesn't really count as a meal, but in honor of that video, if you go and watch that, it's one of my healthy eating habit videos. I have some healthy eating habits for you. Another healthy eating habit that I'm kind of breaking right now is waiting 15 to 30 minutes to eat solids after liquids and vice versa. I just had my smoothie. Now that's a liquid, but it's a solid and a liquid, so I'm cheating. It has not been 15 minutes, it's probably been like 8, so you know, whatever. But I'm a rebel. Just call it like, you know, how it is. Anyways, so I'm gonna start with this little guy here, and I'm gonna break it, and let's take a bite. I'll do 5 inhales and exhales. Make up your own rules. Make up your own rules. It's slightly sweet. Slightly sweet. From the extra honey that I put. Okay, so another thing you can do, and let me start with the story that inspired this snack for me, because I've been having this snack, you know, a couple times a week, a few times a week. I went to an Ethiopian restaurant, and for like an appetizer, they gave me a free bread and olive oil with chili powder. Their bread was so good. It was slightly sweet, but I wanted that for myself, right? I don't want to have to buy food outside. I'd rather make it myself. I buy food outside, but I'm just saying, like, for this snack, you know, I wanted to experiment with that, learn how to do something like this for me at home, something quick. I love to cook, so I'm like, let me do this. Now, this is not the exact texture, but it's something similar. And so with the olive oil, you can do salt, pepper, and red pepper flakes. You could also do the olive oil, mix it with chili powder, and have a little chili oil. You could also do, like I've done, olive oil mixed with harissa powder. There's so many ways to customize this to how you want it. It's a great appetizer, great snack, lunch. You could even like make this and pack it to work. Honestly, get a little sauce cup, put your olive oil, heat up your bread if you want. So whatever you do it big. This was how I intuitively, no recipe, make my bread a little snack. And I'll see you next time. Peace.